Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Vox and Guest, and I am sitting here with Joel of Steam Slicer. Joel, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Joel, in a very lovely room there from Heidelberg, Germany, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Look at you. And repping one of our favorites here at Vox and Sticks, Vox and Guest, Death Pigeon. Look at the shirt. Look at that.
I
JD.
had to wear it. I had to wear it.
There you are, JD. You're already on camera. You got your mention before AOD did. So, how are you doing today, Joel? It's so good to meet you and finally get to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to talk to you and to finally get to meet you too. I'm good. I'm a little nervous, but I think I'm
I
gonna be
got you.
okay.
I'm going to take good care of you. I always do. We're just two people hanging out, chatting about your really,
Just chatting. Yeah.
really kick-ass music. Seriously,
Thank
kick-ass
you.
music. Guys, I know a lot of you already know Steam Slicer, are very familiar with Steam Slicer. Some of you are even working with Steam Slicer, which we'll get to in a bit. But for those of you who don't know, Joel, one-man project here. And I am a huge fan of your stuff. I really am. I really like I listen to so much music for the show and then obviously in general just in life. And your music tickles my brain. I really
Cool.
I dig it. I really do. And I'm excited for this interview, and it's why you don't need to be nervous because it's going to be a total love fest. And I have all these questions that I want to ask you, and find out. So we're going to have a good time. But
Yeah.
I know I just said not to be nervous, but now I'm going to throw you the deeply intense, complicated, and unbelievably philosophical first question that has
Okay.
become so famous on this show. So maybe you do need to be a little bit nervous now because this is maybe the
I
biggest
have a sip
question
of
of your
water.
life, Joel. It could, yeah, get ready. Gird your loins, hold on to the desk, whatever you need to do. Okay. So,
Okay,
all right, are you ready for this?
I'm
Okay.
ready.
If you could make any animal of your choosing pocket-sized and carry it around with you all the time, what animal would you choose and why? I know I told you it was going to be hard. I don't pull punches here. This is Vox and Guest. We're coming up on our 25th episode, and I got to bring the hard-hitting journalism, Joel.
Yeah,
Any animal
it
in the
is a
world.
hard question
It
because I
is.
like a lot of animals.
Okay.
Most of them are very small already, but I would go for the elephant.
I had a feeling. Okay, why the elephant? You're going to have to
Because
fight with
it's
Louis Tivy over
first of
that.
all, it's very big, and second of all, it's a majestic creature, and
They
I
really are.
love elephants because they seem to be very calm and yeah, just magic creatures, and
I
I
love. Can
love.
you imagine a pocket elephant? How
Yeah, that would
great
be
that would
very
be.
cool.
And then you just pick one up and it's right there and it's like, hello, little. Do you have a
Yeah, and
name for
it's
your? Oh,
like
yeah.
I get I get very or I feel very small when I see an elephant, of course,
Yeah.
because it's very big, but
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an almost intimidating creature, and it would be nice to just in some situations to have it right here and then look at it and
It's
be
true. You could feel
happier.
humongous. Think about how large you would feel.
Yeah, then I could feel large. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you would have a name for your elephant, but that might be a second deeply philosophical
Oh
question,
yeah,
and I want to put you on the
I would
spot.
have to think about that a lot.
Yeah, All right. Well, during the course of the
Yeah.
interview, while I'm asking you the silly questions about your music, in the background, just be like, name for my pocket elephant, name for my pocket elephant. So, yeah, elephant's a good one. I almost would maybe want a giraffe, but I feel like it would just be like carrying a toothbrush around, because of the long neck. But yeah,
Yeah.
so, all right. Well, that's it. We're done here, folks. It's not going to get better than that. So,
Maybe I should have picked the pigeon. Maybe
or we could just have a pocket JD. That's
would be
that's
cool,
what I
yeah.
would want.
I'd
That's
carry
it.
him
I'm
around.
gonna put that in as a loophole. Pigeon. And okay, I love it. JD, you're gonna live in my pocket, and shut up, Ash and Rob, because I know they're already taking that to bad places. But okay, thank you for indulging my deeply philosophical question. But I am, as I said, I love your music, and I'm so glad that you're
Thank you.
here. And I'm especially interested to talk to you because you have a lot of you have all your music out on your social media. You post a lot, but you don't talk too much in too many places, at least not in English,
Yeah.
about your music and the story behind it. So in some ways, and actually this is a nice change of pace for me, some of the things that I ordinarily might have backstory on going into this interview will be things that I wanted to ask you about, which is cool because I get to get the information straight from you for once. But so just to frame it up for people, your genre is, I think you consider it like a prog metal kind of genre,
Yeah,
right?
I would myself consider it just as metal music.
Okay.
But apparently people need some kind of category. And yeah, a friend said I have some progressive parts, and then I said, okay, it's progressive metal. Then it's
Okay,
okay.
it's a good thing your friend didn't say it was like disco metal or
Yeah.
something, and and now cue the whole polka conversation in the chat. But it's funny because I was trying, as I often do, just for fun. Not really that genre matters to me, as long as it's good music. I don't care what I'm listening to. But your music, I feel, is, and this is a very good thing, it's got a lot of different genre aspects built into it. I mean, I do absolutely, of course, hear metal. I do hear prog. I hear some rock, alt rock. I hear, some. I hear elements of a lot of different things. And one of the mental notes that I made to myself when I was listening through your album, which for those who don't know is Echoes of Infinity, which came out back in March.
Yeah.
It is what I thought to myself was, there are so many sonic elements here that feel like a homecoming, in the sense that they remind me warmly of things that I know and that I love, and of bands that I know and that I love. But it doesn't sound like any of them. It kind of reminds me of all of them, but it's very distinctly Steam Slicer music. And I love when a band or a person, I love when musicians can do that, because it makes it more interesting for me. I mean, I love listening to something that has metal elements, but also has prog elements and has some rock elements, and for other people, if they throw in, synth elements or whatever. I love that. I love having complexity in genre to listen to. So that's one of my favorite things about your music, but I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole yet, because I want to do some other stuff first. So Greg had wanted me to ask you about the name Steam Slicer.
Yeah, great question.
I'll tell him. Well, he heard it. He's sitting right here. But great question.
Yeah, well, Steam Slicer is one of many words. I have a little list where I when I come up with like a name for a song, or just a phrase or something, I just write it down. And it's mostly stupid, to be honest, because I don't know, there's a lot of stupid stuff going on in my head, and
like pocket elephant, or
yeah, exactly. And it just needs to get out sometimes, and I write it down. And Steam Slicer was something I said it, I think, to my girlfriend in like a commercial voice. Steam Slicer. I thought it had some kind of badass attitude, and I wrote it down because I thought, okay, you can't slice steam. It's just a ridiculous name. And when I made this music, I didn't have a name for the band or the project. And I was showing some stuff to a friend, and I said, yeah, it's my new prog metal thing called Steam Slicer. And he was like, oh, cool, yeah. And he didn't question the name, so I was like, okay.
You're like, I got away with
it. Keep it, yeah. And he said, yeah, it's good, it's a cool name, it sounds cool. And then I thought, yeah, good, then we just keep it like that. And now every time somebody says Steam Slicer, I kind of giggle inside a little bit, because it's
like,
it doesn't have any deeper meaning. And
it's funny though, because I love stuff like that too, because it will serve as a little bit of a Rorschach test for people who are like, oh, I bet it means this. Right. So I was trying to figure out when Greg brought it up, because I was just like, yeah, I'm like, I don't really know what it means. I was like, I don't really care that I don't know what it means. I'm like, maybe it's like like at first I was like, well, is it like a mountain cutting through mist? But I'm like, but that's not steam. And then I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's like in a subway, but I'm like, I don't think he named his band after a subway. And I was like, yeah, I don't really care what it is. But I bet people will have had or will have like, oh, did you mean this? And you could always be like,
Yeah.
yes, I did. And just
Yeah,
say yes to
sure.
everyone.
Yeah.
And then they all get in a room together and they're like, yeah, do you know what Joel's band's name means? And they're all like, I do, but they all mean complete. All right. So it was just like a brain nugget that you wrote down
Yeah.
and yeah, but it is a
Yeah.
cool name though. I like things that have alliteration in the first place, steam slicer. And it looks,
Yeah.
plus you've got the cool logo and everything. So, all
I've
right.
gotten
So
used to it now, so I won't change it. So
I think it's better than like sliced steam would have been. That would have
yeah.
not made it.
Yeah.
Steam slicer is cool. But so, okay. So, Joel, talk to me about how you got into music in the first place. Were you a little kid? Did you start later in life? What was it? Was it somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think I was a young teenager, maybe 12, 13 years old. And
Okay.
I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than me. And he brought home all kinds of music. Like he was a lot into skateboarding, so it was a lot of skate punk rock, stuff like that.
Okay.
And I thought, cool, this stuff has a lot of energy. And he provided me with the newest music that he could get his hands on.
Okay.
And at some point, and we still don't know to this day, we bought a guitar and an amp
Oh, okay.
together and just started playing. And I borrowed a drum set from a friend of mine, and we
Okay.
just jammed in our rooms. And that's how I got obsessed with music in general, because before that I didn't really have any memories of my parents didn't give me like piano lessons or
Okay.
whatever. There was nothing too much musical in my life
Did they,
before
did they
that. But
listen to a lot of music in the house when you were a kid? Since you and
yeah,
your brother
not
both got into it, or
there was always radio playing, and
okay.
but my mother, I know she's a huge Bon Jovi fan, so maybe there's
Okay.
some kind of epic music background I have. But yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
if Bon Jovi qualifies as an epic music background, although I do like them. But no, but okay, so you didn't come from a musical family, but
Yeah,
it's
not
interesting
not
that
at
both
all. Yeah.
you and your brother both got into. Is he still a musician or?
Not a musician, but he's very good at classical guitar and
That's a
piano
musician.
as well. Yeah,
Okay.
He's just doing it as a hobby.
Yeah, not
He's not
professionally, right?
recording stuff.
Okay. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I think it was his idea to buy a guitar, and then we just started jamming. And the first
That's
stuff
very cool.
was like very easy to play, stuff like AC/DC and then Nirvana. I remember a lot of Nirvana,
Yeah.
because they just use power chords, and that was the easiest thing to learn
Right.
without learning anything.
Right.
So yeah, that was the starting point, and from then on, I've gotten into more aggressive or more heavy music. I think it was the first time my brother came home with an album called Vulgar Display of Power from Pantera.
Ah, yeah.
And
Okay.
that
An album I know of now, thanks to the show, but did not before. So yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Pantera,
that
gateway
thing or
band for a
that
lot.
band changed my life.
Okay.
And yeah, since then I'm obsessed with Pantera.
What
And
about Pantera and metal in general do you think lit you up so much? Like, what is it, because I mean, obviously your music is very heavily percussive, it's very guitar driven. So, I mean, I understand where, if that's something that you like making, it's probably something that you've liked listening to. But I mean, was it, versus like Bon Jovi and Nirvana or whatever? Do you have a sense of what made you hear Pantera and go, oh,
yeah,
that's what I want? Or was it just, you just liked it?
I think I was fascinated by the energy that was in
Ah,
that music.
mm,
I'm a very calm person, and I'm very shy actually. And but this music is yeah, the complete opposite of me as a person. But it was just fascinating somehow, and
mm,
I've gotten into this or got sucked into this metal world somehow, and it's it was crazy because I actually used it to fall asleep. Sometimes I was listening to
You're not
Slayer
the
to
first
fall
one,
asleep.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good thing, but it was crazy. And my parents thought that maybe something is wrong with me because I was just blasting music so loud to fall asleep. And um,
It
yeah,
worked. It
it
worked.
worked. Yeah, and it calms me down. Even the
Mm,
craziest death metal stuff, it calms me down. It's not
okay.
like a lot of people get aggressive or
Right.
freak out when they hear that,
Right.
but the exact opposite. And I love the energy that is in that music. Just it's amazing.
That's cool. I mean, there must be something about it that lets your brain process things that maybe relaxes you,
Yeah.
and it's funny because we've, talked on the show before about, sort of the paradox of metal. I
Mm,
think there are multiple paradoxes of metal in general, but like one of them being the experience of positive emotions from sort of something that could be considered, aggressive or negative or,
mm,
intense in that way. And I don't even like to label metal that way specifically, but I mean, if you put on a death pigeon, rewiring of humanity, or you put on a
mm.
shovel monster, you put on, like the music is definitely not what you would consider to be lullaby
Yeah.
material, right?
Yeah,
But
sure.
but it's not negative,
No,
it's just
not at all. Yeah.
intense. It's very intense. And it's funny because I'm relating these bands, and then I'm thinking of your music, and I think the music is very different. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's actually a very good place to segue into song, which now the entire chat is lighting up with song and song at, this early in the show. And yes, this early in the show, because I think it'll be more interesting for everyone watching if, we talk about this piece of it, having recently heard something that you do. So we're going to feature Lifelong from Echoes of Infinity, rather. But did you want to say a little something about the song quickly before, why you picked it, or, besides the fact that it's kind of blowing up, but, anything that we should know before we watch?
That was kind of the song that meant the most to me, lyric wise. And
Mm.
yeah, I think we get to that point later where I explain what
Yeah,
is behind all that stuff. But
probably in
yeah,
just a
this
minute.
is
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So yeah,
it means a lot to me, and it has just a badass riff, and I'm
yeah, it
glad I
really
came up
does.
with it.
Well, I'm glad you said it. You beat me to it. But all right, guys, song. This is it. Feast your ears on Lifelong by Steam Slicer. So you may find this amusing, but and again, whenever I draw comparisons about songs or bands or anything like that to the artists that I'm interviewing, it's, as I have always said, very positive, and it doesn't mean that it sounds like you wrote a song by this band or this musician. It's just kind of like, oh, it's evocative of, or it reminds me a little bit of this. And from the beginning of that song where you have that big crescendo, the chords coming in, and then all of a sudden, boom, the guitar and the drums take over the whole thing. The first thing that came to my mind the first time I heard it was Rush. And I don't know if that's anything anyone else would say or whatever, but I just, and then I'm, as the song goes on, I'm hearing more Sabbath, like almost Iron Man kind of vibes. And I don't know if you know the band, but back in like 91-ish, I think, Faith No More came out and kind of, blew up with, I think it was Epic was the first big single. And like, and I'm hearing all of that. And then I'm going, you sound kind of like Soundgarden, Chris Cornell to me on this. Like I'm here. So that's what I mean about the homecoming element of your music. It's like, and none of the songs doesn't sound like, Rush, or like it doesn't, but there are all these things. There was something about your vocals and the chord progressions that reminded me of Soundgarden. There was something about the drums and the way that the drums and the guitar were playing with each other that reminded me of Rush. And then sort of the feel of it, the dirtiness and the kind of chugginess reminded me of Sabbath. So it's in that way. But I mean, if you put all of those bands together, Rush and Soundgarden and Sabbath and Faith No More, it would be like, wait, what the hell? But one of the things that I love so much about your stuff is that, and I mean, I have notes like that to myself as I'm listening to all of your songs. I'm going, okay, here I hear a little bit of, this band or that band, or this is more prog, or this is more rock, or this is more whatever. And I love that it doesn't fall neatly into one sound for me. So, I mean, Lifelong, I could say the similar things about all of them, but like and then I also heard some alt rock elements on that song. So there's just so much there that I love, and then it's Joel, it's you. And I mean, and again, I want to let you talk about the lyrics. And before we do that, I think we should probably back up a little bit to the inspiration for the band and the album, right? Because the band started last year, right? 2022.
Yeah.
And I think a little birdie told me that it was something that you began after you found out you were going to be a dad, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So talk to me about, this sort of life panorama concept behind the album and sort of how that came to you. And because this is something that I'm like, you can't see me, but I'm like tucking my feet under my, like, it's like story time in the library. I really want to hear this because, lyrically, musically, everything, it made me so curious about how this came to be, the band, the album, the lyrics, all of it. So I'm going to let you just talk for a while because I just want to listen.
Yeah, it was, I think February 22. When I've gotten the news that I would become a father for the first time. And that was just amazing for me and, or for us. And it was to that, I have to back up a little bit. I was doing a lot of music, like home recording stuff for the past, I don't know, 10 years or so. And I've never released anything of that properly. Maybe something on YouTube, but it was just for fun, for myself. Most of the songs, there was something missing. There was vocals missing. There was drums missing, whatever. I just never finished anything. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm either have to gonna write a journal or do something because I need to deal with my emotions, deal with my feelings I have.
Yeah.
and I'm not very good with the words, so I
Well, maybe
usually
verbally, but
yeah.
I would say lyrically you are. But yes,
Thank
I know
you.
what you mean. There's a difference between saying something and writing
Yeah,
or singing or playing something. I got you.
yeah, and I was like, okay, I have to make music again, and this time I wanna, it was some kind of image I had in my mind that I would be able to tell my son when he's ready.
Yeah.
This is how I felt when just before you were born,
Oh, I
and
love
because
that
I'm not,
so much.
and because I'm not so good with the words, I would just hand him a CD and
All
tell
right,
him this
Joel, I
is
know I said I was going to let you
something.
talk, but I have to stop. I have a no criticizing yourself rule on the show, which everyone who watches it is going, oh, Christina's going to get mad at him now because he said something bad about yourself. I can't let it go because you've said it like 3 times now. Maybe let's reframe that from not being good with words, because again, as I said, first of all, you're incredibly articulate here, so I call bullshit already, but I'm understanding what you mean in terms of maybe conveying emotions or expressing
Mm,
yourself in a more, you know, vulnerable or whatever kind of way. But you're shy. I think you've said
mm.
that, and communicating through music is easier for you than verbally.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely. Yeah.
I'm big on reframing here because I don't like people insulting themselves, and I'm so there you go. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but there's
All
my
good.
naggy little moment. But but what a beautiful idea, though. First of all, that you were moved enough by the news that you had a baby on the way to have all these emotions, that you are a brave and strong enough person to acknowledge and process your emotions. And then I love the notion of making a gift of music that's kind of like a time capsule for your little
Yeah,
boy,
exactly.
where
Yeah.
he could go back, in time with you 5, 10, 15 years from now or whatever. And as he gets older, it's going to mean different things to him. And especially,
Hmm.
if he chooses to become a dad, which I know it seems very far away right now, but
Yeah.
trust me, it goes very fast. That he can share that this is what your grandfather thought. You know what I mean? I love
Yeah.
that so much. So, all right. So I'm already sold and hooked on this whole idea. So you decided that you were going to make this as a sort of a journal for your son, a musical
Yeah,
journal for your son. So okay, so
exactly. Yeah.
did it come easily? Did the music come first? Did the lyrics come first? What was sort of, walk me through? Joel finds out, guess what? Baby Joel on the way, and I'm going to
Yeah.
make this music. And so what happened once you realized this was going to be the project?
I am usually a drummer from like I started with drumming, but since I'm not living in a house,
Right.
I need to do different things. So I grabbed the guitar and I just started playing. I just started playing and recorded myself like for an hour or 30-minute takes I had. Just jamming to it and to my thoughts and to whatever I was feeling, and
Cool.
yeah, that was kind of the first rough idea I had
Okay.
to make an album. Actually, the album that will come out on November 3rd. You can have a guess on what day that is, or whose birthday that is.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that though. That's wonderful. Okay.
And yeah, that was the first thing that I came up with, was actually the album. But I was not able to finish that again because I couldn't find someone to sing, because I
Okay.
wasn't in the place to sing. I've never sang. I've never
Yeah.
done that. I was way too ashamed actually to hear myself sing. That was very hard for me to hear my voice, or on
Joel, we
recordings.
gotta work
I
on your
got over that.
self-esteem, man. I'm glad, because the idea, having listened to you sing, that you would have ever not wanted everybody to hear that is shocking to me. Like, your voice is real, and I'm a singer, at least ostensibly, and like, so I'm picky about that. And your voice is really cool. It's got
Thank
texture
you.
to it. It can play. and do different things. You can be lower, more growly. You have that great, tenor quality to it. Like, I'm so glad that you ended up singing. And I remember, when I was researching, going, wow, okay, he wasn't planning on doing any vocals for this, and then kind of it was out of necessity you did. So I'm so glad that you couldn't find anybody. You don't need anybody to sing on your stuff, maybe for collabs or whatever, but you can absolutely do it. So, all right. So you decided you were going to do that, but not, because the album that's coming out in so the whole album is coming out November 3rd, right?
Yeah, right.
So I know we have, and we're going to jump around a little bit. We'll come back to this story. So on September 1st, you have part 1 Retro coming out, right?
That's the first single from
the album is Devenir, right? So doesn't that mean to become? My French is rusty,
exactly,
but yeah. Okay. So all right. So that all makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes.
That's a great name, very well chosen. So, okay. So you had begun by writing songs for Devenir, and then because you didn't have a vocalist, you stepped aside and you started working on what became Echoes of Infinity. Am I understanding that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was, I actually had a singer, but I wasn't really happy not with his voice, because he's a great singer, and he has a very he can scream very good, which was at that point somehow important to me to have a screaming voice on that.
Okay.
But this project was so personal, it was so intimate, and
I was just thinking
I had
that
to do it myself. It was like, okay, I have to get over it. I need to sing, and I have to just do it myself.
And what a great model for your little boy too. That even before he was here, he was encouraging you to overcome your fears and do the thing that you needed to do for him. What a great dad you were, and you didn't even have a kid yet, Joel. Okay. All right. So you decided, too personal, I agree. You were going to do it yourself. So keep going with me. So you began, you said, by jamming to your emotions, which I love. So you were expressing yourself musically, instrumentally first, rather than lyrically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
lyrics was the last thing I did.
Okay, so and I like to ask about songwriting process and all of that. So you would sit down, you'd record these 30, 60-minute sessions of just, and then what'd you do? Did you go back and listen and go, here's a riff I want to pull, or were they whole songs that kind of came out, or what was the, how did you get from the jams to the actual, songs?
The first idea was to just keep it the way it is, because it was kind of like an
like raw
emotional roller coaster going up and down, and but then I decided to cut it a little bit, because there were just stuff in there that didn't sound very good.
Sure.
And if you hear the whole album, it's basically 3 big songs that are like 50 minutes long, each of them, and cut into pieces so that you have like 3, 4, 5-minute songs to to listen to it.
So then you have more like 9 or 10 songs instead of 3 that are almost an hour. I think the human ear needs a little bit of because you do have a couple songs on Echoes that are 8 minutes long ish. So and again, a testament to your music is that I didn't mind that at all. Because if you sit down and you're listening to something and you see that it's 7-8 minutes long, and you get into the first minute and you're like, and then you're like, shit, I got like 8 more minutes. Exactly. And I was like, oh, 8 more minutes of so I mean, again, I really like your stuff. I really do. It's something I could hear on the radio. It's something but I get you. You have to make it consumable, bite-sized songs. So, okay. So does that mean that you took most of what you recorded in those jam sessions, cut out the things you didn't like, and then just broke it up? Is that how you came up with the songs?
Yeah, and there are parts where I just left it mostly like it was.
Wow, okay.
And there are some parts where I just took the best bits and built other song structure kind of things around it.
Okay.
To make it a little bit more accessible, but it's pretty raw, and I didn't re-record any of the guitars, actually. I even recorded a couple of solos, and they were all mostly first take solos.
Okay.
Because I didn't like that it was too clean or too,
Yeah.
it
Too
wasn't raw enough.
perfect. Too, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
and
I think a lot of people trade authenticity and
yeah.
um emotion for smoothing it out and perfecting
Mm,
it. And I think the farther away we get from, and it's funny because, not to get off on a tangent, and I promise I won't, but like, if you looked at the bands that were huge in like the 60s, 70s, even 80s, these were not like magazine cover ready
mm,
bands, and like everything that they did was not perfect. It was all kind
yeah,
of raw and rough or whatever, but people love that music because it's real.
yeah, yeah,
And now I
exactly.
think we've moved more towards, the Photoshop of
Hmm.
music and Photoshop of musicians where, people will look great, but you don't want to listen to
Yeah,
what they're
is
doing.
it?
So I love that you preserve that. I love that you wanted it to
Yeah,
be, there could be, clams in there, errors in there, whatever, but it didn't
yeah,
matter because I doubt highly that it takes away from anything
yeah.
emotionally. So
There's a lot of stuff going on there that you usually would just cut away or
yeah,
re-record because it wasn't, recorded perfectly. But I tried to capture that
yeah,
moment I had when I was recording to,
I love that.
to hopefully have an authentic record in the end.
I love that.
And
Okay.
yeah, I was pretty much done recording guitars and then bass and drums, and had songs, and then was the vocal thing I had
Yeah.
going on there. And then I thought, okay, I'm not quite ready yet to try it on the. I wanted this album to be just like not perfect, but
What
I
you
had
wanted
to
it to
try.
be. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to try some vocals on something
Somewhere
different.
else. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
and
Because
that
you're what I'm
sound.
hearing from you is you never had sung
No,
before.
no,
So even when you
no.
were doing your music for the decade prior, that was just
Yeah,
for you. You weren't singing on any of that?
no, not at
Okay.
all.
So
No.
you decided to put out an album and sing for the first time. So okay.
Yeah,
So you decided let me work on something else first. So I guess thus was Echoes of Infinity born.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
Love
that
that.
was a time when my son was born already, and
Yeah.
my girlfriend and myself, we were just splitting the nights, because he was getting up every 1 or 2 hours to
Oh yeah.
drink.
Yeah.
And
And you're trying to make a record and you have a 0 to 4 month old, which is kudos to you that you even were
yeah,
able to get your pants on at that point. I remember those days very well. So yeah, okay. So you
and
were doing a lot.
yeah, and I was gladly taking the night shifts from like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Mm.
Roughly that time, so that my girlfriend could sleep a little bit without any disturbances. And I
Mhm.
was, in the first place, I was not doing a lot, but then I was grabbing the guitar, the electric guitar, not amplified,
Yeah.
and I played a little bit, and I felt it was some kind of soothing him down a little bit or calming him
That's
down.
great.
And
That's
then I thought,
great.
okay, maybe I had him in the little crib, and I
Yeah.
thought, okay, maybe I can just record some stuff while he's sleeping, and because it was just on the headphones and on
Yeah,
the
why
on the
not?
computer.
Yeah.
And that's how I wrote Echoes of Infinity. It was and always at night, and the little one was right next to me, and
Joel,
very.
I love this so much. Like my mommy brain is like exploding, like my ovaries are like, squee, because it's just, because I love that the first album you started writing was to commemorate his coming into the world. And then the
Yeah,
album that you wrote to get ready for the vocals for that album, you
yeah,
wrote with him here right next to you late at night. And there's something magical about that time, as a parent of especially a very new baby,
mm,
that if you're not up and bouncing them and hearing screaming, crying, whatever, when they're sleeping and the house is quiet and everything is still, there's something truly transcendent about that. I remember those
mm,
days very fondly. And I love that music came out of that. And I love that this music that, this album that we're talking about, and again, I want to make sure for everybody, because we are, the album that is out is not the one we had been talking about. So, Joel is coming out with Divineer. That'll be here in November. The single will be out in September, as I said. But like, so Echoes then took you, was it about 3-4 months to put together? It must have been pretty quick at that point. So when did you decide to start working on that? Because I know you started to write Divineer in February or ish. And then, by March you had Echoes out. So how long did it take for you to put Echoes together? Because I mean, yes, it's 5 songs, but it's a half an hour. And as I said, you got 2 8-minute songs right there. So it's not a quick, it's not like a 15-minute album or whatever. So when did you start that one? When did you start Echoes?
I started in November when my son was very little.
Wow. Okay.
But those were just some ideas. And then when we had some kind of routine, which is not existent with a little baby, but as far as I was, where I tried to have a little routine there. And
parents everywhere watching this are like, yes, Joel, we get it. we get it. The baby decides the routine, and the baby is a baby, so it's not very good at planning or scheduling. So it usually takes at least a couple months, or if you're like my kid, 4 years or so. So I totally understand. I'm not even kidding. I wish I were. But so you in 4 months had a baby and wrote and produced and released an album.
Yeah, and then I would call it an EP because it's only 5 songs, but
it
was in the end bigger than I thought. I was thinking about 3 songs actually, just instrumental, and because I was I wasn't quite sure about the vocal thing, but in the end those songs turned out to be not instrumental songs. There was like, okay, I'm listening to that and lyrics are missing. So that was the last time where I was, okay, now I have to do it.
So you, even having started the album with the idea of it being kind of a get your feet wet on singing, there was still a part of you that was going to try and cheese out and not have vocals on Echoes. Okay, so all right, but so I mean, so let's talk a little bit then about the lyric process there, because and it I cannot wait to hear the album when it comes out, Divineer, because I really want to know what the lyrics are going to be for that, given what you were writing it about. But I mean, even with Echoes, these are not lyrics that are just throwaway. You clearly, you had things you wanted to say, and you had just gone through probably one of the biggest life-changing events ever. So, I mean, talk to me a little bit about the lyrics for Echoes, and then we can get more into the lyrics for Divineer too, and sort of the idea, behind it.
Yeah, it was, the lyrics were just, they came very easily somehow. I was surprised myself, because the problem I had before when I made music, and I thought about maybe singing, was like, okay, I need lyrics. And I was like, okay, I can't write any. It didn't work out very well.
Okay.
But this time it was different. It was like the stuff came to me because I was thinking a lot about my fears, my anxieties, my my thoughts about the future. Of course, this baby changed the whole everything I was thinking about. Everything, it changes everything. And that, so the lyrics came pretty fast and pretty easy to me, and just had to bring them in some kind of melody, or some kind of way that I can sing them. It was just a text, nothing rhymed in the beginning, and so that was, I had 2 phases kind of, where I just wrote text, more or less like a journal, and then try to make it into a song structure, and try to figure out where I can put a nice melody in there. So
so you kind of did with that, what you were doing with Divineer in a way, where you were letting it come as it was without editing, which I think most great writing, that's usually or always, but at least usually how that starts, is just, laying it all out on the page. And then you went through and you chose what you wanted. You neatened it up, gave it the structure, all of that. So, I mean, were you also new to lyric writing, or was the stuff that you were doing? Okay. So prior to Devenir and Echoes, everything you had ever done musically was instrumental with no vocals. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, you've had a big year, Joel. Like, I mean, it's been now what, like almost a year and a half since you found out you were going to be a dad and you decided to start this project, right? And in that time, I'm hearing that you learned how to write lyrics, sing. You put out 2 albums. You had a baby. I mean, like that's. I love that this is how you've processed this experience, and that it's changed you so much that even musically what you do is new and different. So, I mean, you said that the lyrics came easily. Was that true for both albums, or?
The first lyrics I've written were for Echoes of Infinity, and for Devenir I was writing them this year, I think, mostly. It was easier for Devenir because I had some kind of idea how I could start this, and and I was doing like song tracks or the name of the track at first, and then have like a strong word, and then build something around that, or just wrote and see what happens. There were different approaches, and
well, because the albums are, I mean, I know again, and we can get into it a little bit in a minute, but I know that you do have a theme and a concept for Devenir. But Echoes, I mean, would you say that's true for Echoes as well? Or would you say, right, because to me, it sounds more like standalone songs that are on an EP. So that makes sense to me. So, I mean, in that way too, I imagine that once you know what the story that you're writing or the arc that you're creating is, that gives you some guideposts too, lyrically, exactly, and everything else. But I mean, it's funny because, oh man, I really like your music. So I'm thinking back. No, I'm thinking back because it one of the things that I noticed, or I think I noticed about Echoes, is that, and I'm trying to figure out a way to describe what I see in my head when I think about your music and I'm hearing it to myself, which is a whole bunch of sensory nonsense, but bear with me. Your tendency in the mixing seems to me to be, and I especially feel like I felt this or noticed this or acknowledged this on Intense Infinity, but I feel like your preference is to mix the vocals back. And what I noticed about that was, for me, and I hope this wasn't just sort of like a mixing debacle that I'm glorifying here, but what it did for me was that I could hear all the lyrics, and I could hear the vocals. That wasn't my problem. I didn't have a problem. That wasn't a problem for me. I mean, but what I noticed is that it really popped out the instrumentation. Like I felt almost like, when you're reading a pop-up book and there's all this dimension to it, and in the forefront is very much this instrumentation, but the lyrics and the vocals are the book, And so it gave the way that you, and I mean, I'll ask you, and you can, feel free to agree with this if it was just a mixing issue that you didn't intend or whatever, but like, I feel like the choice there, if it was a choice to mix it that way, it gave so much dimension to the album, because I could listen and feel, because your music, and again, as I'm talking to you, I promise there's a question in here, but again, I said I love your music, so this is what happens. My brain lights up and I babble, and then people are like, shut up. But so, but like your music is very emotional, and not, it's not, you're not writing ballads, you're not writing, you know, big Celine Dion screaming epic whatever. That's not what I mean. I mean that there's so much passion and emotion and authenticity in your music, which is one of the things I love most about it. And it's and I love that you can experience that as a predominantly instrumental thing. You can experience it as a instrumental and vocal thing. You can experience it as a lyrical thing, you know, but I mean, did you choose to do that with the mixing, or am I just talking out of my ass, or like what was
No,
the
it's actually great that you say that, because you're one of the few persons who gets it.
Oh,
What I
okay.
was
Woo, I was right
what I
about
was
something. Yay me.
doing with that. Yeah, it caused a lot of confusion. I believe, because yeah, the biggest feedback I got is, yo, you mixed the vocals far away in the background, and it's
Really?
you know,
Okay. But
and
like they said that as like a bad thing, or like they thought it was
yeah, it's something that stands out, and I don't know if it's good or bad. It doesn't matter really, but it was intention, or it was on purpose.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the one thing was that what you just described, to give the instrumentation another dimension, to bring that
It
more to the
does.
foreground.
It does.
And it was also a little critique on music in general right now, because there's so much emphasis on the vocals,
Yes.
especially in pop music, and that's
Yes.
part of pop music, and that's okay. But
Right. But
the rest is
there's a
just,
spectrum to that. Yeah. And you
yeah,
don't want to go too hard on either end. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I agree.
but, there's so much just vocals, and just
Yeah.
this huge vocal ball that comes into your face, and the rest is just, it can be
It
anything,
almost
it
doesn't
doesn't
count.
matter. There's
Yeah.
just some guys
No, I
playing some
agree.
instruments, and
I
that
mean,
was kind of, I didn't like that, even in metal
yeah.
music, and in music I like to listen to, that it's kind of is not balanced out for me. And I overdid it a little bit with just doing the exact opposite, but there was this other thing with the dimension and
Yeah.
of the instruments, and I wanted to have the lyrics, or the vocals, as some kind of
Yeah.
atmospheric
Yes.
element,
Yes.
not just an vocal,
To
or
be the
just,
focus. No, you know what? You know what? It just popped into my head how I experienced it. Do you know those posters, the lenticular posters, where you have to sort of almost cross your eyes and then an image will pop
yeah.
out from it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Anybody who's seen the movie Mallrats knows about these posters very well, but like it's this idea that it looks like one thing, you know, it just looks like a series of patterns, but then when you focus your attention on it, this 3D image will come out at you. Do you even know what the hell I'm talking about? Okay, you do?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
And that's how I experienced the album. It was, you know, and the vocals specifically, because you could train your ear on one or the other. You could train your ear on the vocals. You could train your, because they're not, I mean, I don't know why people were complaining. That's, I mean, talk about missing the forest for the trees. Like it's just, now I'm a little mad because I love the album so much. So send those people to me and I'll fuck them up. But like, but I mean, like it, there were moments where I chose, especially on a song like Intense Infinity, where you've got, you know, I think out of all of them, I think that was the one where I felt like the vocals were mixed back the most, right? And so,
it is,
and you've got this very, like the vocals are almost kind of like this chanting, as you said, atmospheric, like it gives so much depth to the rest of it. But then I would literally, and it's interesting to me, and the reason I'm babbling about this so much, and I'm sorry, Joel, you're very sweet to indulge me on this, but like I'm not used to listening to music that way. Like this was a newer thing for me that I didn't even choose to do. It was kind of what happened with what you chose to do in terms of mixing, that I would go, oh, right now I'm going to focus like mainly on the guitars and the bass. You know, it wasn't even a conscious thing that I was doing. It was just like diving into different pools that were all connected to each other, different temperatures of water, different depths of water. And I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but that's what I mean. Like I can't articulate, and I usually like to think of myself as a fairly articulate person, but your album, it's so submersive in that way, and it's immersive in that way that it gives you all of those oral choices. Do I want to listen to this? And I mean, so like the first time I listened to Emerge, again, that and Alive, I think, are the two longest songs on the EP, right? So, and I mean, Alive, and I'm sorry, I know we're jumping around a lot, but that's okay. I think everybody's used to it by now. So, but I mean, like that one, it's a great start to the album. The drums on all of your songs are, and it makes sense to me now that you're a drummer, but they're so prominent. And I don't mean in the mix, I mean in the texture of the music. There's all this intricacy in the beats and the blast beats and in the rhythms, and you play a lot with tempo and dynamic and rhythm in your songs, and it gives all of, as I keep using the word, but it's the best word I can think of right now, it gives it all this texture, and that song to me, Emerge, is probably the most proggy of the ones on the album, and partly because it goes in so many different places musically. You've got this sort of ethereal, more rock, kind of alt rock vocals with these soaring chords, and then the drums in the background, very insistent, keeping everybody grounded, keeping everything in that sort of metal feel, but you're building, and then all of a sudden you're switching up what you do. And then the song does something else for a minute and a half, and then you move into something else, and you come back and you go for, and like that, to me, that's a very prog thing, just to sort of like, somebody will be da, 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 and all of a sudden, and then we're floating through space and time, and then da, 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 but this was done more artfully, I think, than a lot of that. It didn't feel like you had just abruptly changed a radio station. So I really was enchanted by Echoes because it made me listen to and hear music in a different way than I usually do. And to me, that's a big deal. Like I listen to a lot of music. I've been listening to music my entire life. And there was something about this, and I think, and I'm going to shut up in a minute, I promise, but I think there was something about the combination of everything you were going through in your life and your musical skill and your intentional choices around mixing that made that happen. So, I mean, first of all, please don't listen to anybody who complains about the mix. Just listen to me because they're wrong. I'm sorry, but they're wrong. Like it misses the point. There's nuance to what you were doing. It wasn't just because I have listened to music like that where you're like, what are they saying? Wait, are those vocals or is that a synth or is that, what am I hearing? It wasn't any of that. Okay. But so, I mean, when you chose to do that to make the instrumentation pop, let me just make up a question now to make all of that talking worth it. I'm just fangirling over you, Joel. I'm sorry, but like
it's all good. It's very cool.
But I mean, like it. So when you made that choice, was it because you really wanted to do the thing that you had been most used to doing, which was mainly instrumental music, but sort of cheating in the vocals? Was it because you were still a little uncomfortable with the idea of vocals, or was it more for the service of the songs that you felt like the vocals were just meant to be mixed back like that?
Yeah, it was the first of all, thank you for saying all that stuff.
Oh, thank you for thanking me instead of falling asleep.
Because it really means so much to me, because it's finally someone gets it.
Well, I'm sorry I'm the first one, but I think people watching and listening from here on will also get it. Yeah.
Well, the vocals, the idea of vocals when I sing was that I want them to be different than anything else you would hear, or the most stuff you would hear.
You did it.
So the idea was to mix it back and to somehow give other instruments more emphasis and give other parts more emphasis. And that was a idea I had
Hmm.
from the beginning on, when I thought, okay, I have to sing this, and now I'm going to do this. I'm in charge of singing as well. So it
Yeah.
was not someone else singing, and then
Yeah.
I had to mix it like he or she wanted it. So
Yeah. It was all you. Yeah.
I had the freedom to do whatever I want, and this was very cool. And yeah, I was very much looking forward to the feedback on that, actually, because I knew that it was very, very different,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of, as I said, a lot of feedback I got was just not exactly you did something wrong, but there's something that you should change, and
It
so
kind of
this
reminds
is
me of like when people will look at someone who's, dolled up for something, and then they
mm,
go, wow, your makeup looks beautiful, or your hair looks beautiful, or your outfit looks beautiful. That's not the same thing as saying, wow, you look great. And
mm,
if they're noticing the pieces of it rather
yeah,
than the gestalt, something is amiss. So, I mean, I would feel exactly as you did with that kind of feedback. But I think, and again, I'm mad at these people because you should never have doubted that. You should have never been put in a position of, or not, maybe you didn't even doubt it because you knew what you were doing, but you shouldn't have been put in a position where you maybe had to feel like it didn't land, it didn't work. I mean,
mm,
I am sitting listening to these songs and these albums for these interviews very closely, which I think
mm,
people know by now, because I'm genuinely interested in everybody, and I genuinely care about what everybody's making and what they're doing, and I really want to hear it. And so I put aside genre, I put aside, you know, like length of songs, or the themes, or the characters, or I put all of that aside and I just take it in. And it's no slight to anybody else that I've interviewed, because I've interviewed 20 something tremendous artists, and it takes nothing away from any of them, but this is the first time in listening that closely with that set of ears that this
thank
happened
you.
with me. It's true. And I think it's, the fact that you were able to achieve that musically is kind of astounding to me, because it was a leap. It could have sounded like a mistake. It could have
Yeah,
sounded like, oh, geez, Joel just forgot to turn the slider up on the
yeah,
box. Like it could
yeah.
have. It never occurred to me. And I mean, I hedged a little bit because you looked a little like, but I guess you were processing like, oh, somebody's actually, maybe you thought I was going to say the other thing, but, I hedged that maybe it was an error, but it didn't feel like one, because it would have been too happy an accident. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
that seemed like something that was very intentional and designed to do it. And, and you seem invigorated by your life over the last 18 months. You seem like
mm,
your life, and first of all, I just, as a human being to a human being, I love that bringing a person into the world changed you in the direction that it did. I love that, because we don't have enough good parents like that out there. I wish we did. So thank God for you on that one. And then also I'm happy for your little boy, because he gets a great dad, and I'm sure a great mom too. But like, but the fact that you could take all the emotion you were feeling, all of, as you said, the fears, the anxieties, all
mm,
of, just, again, when it's not just you and your significant other anymore, and you realize that this person's coming into the world, and what the world is like, and what they're going to have to navigate and learn and live through and experience, it's exhilarating, and it is absolutely terrifying. And so
mm,
I'm relating to you so hard, and that's why I'm so excited for Devenir to come out, because I want to hear you describe that, because I
mhm,
know if you were able to do just sonically with a mix, and the skill and everything obviously that went into it, what you did with this album that isn't so intensely personal to you, I can't imagine how it's going to hit me when I listen to Devenir in November. So I'm super excited for that now, like more even than I was. But I mean, you sat down. I'm trying to corral my thoughts, but I don't even care at this point. I'm just having so much fun, like talking about. I don't really give a shit about structure, whatever. Like we'll get there someday. But like, so you sat down and you decided to write this album. Again, you were sort of jamming, figuring out what you wanted to do, building song structure, whatever. Your lyrics came in as they came in, right?
mm.
Okay. How did you decide to take the songs on Echoes where you did lyrically? What was sort of the, if you want to get into it per song or just in general, like, because it sounded like they came pretty easily to you because you had a little bit of, you had done it before for this was your second rodeo, right? So I mean, like what inspired you? I mean, I know nature is a huge, Mother Earth, and I think you say something, maybe it was, I don't remember which of your social media, but the idea of like nature's rough beauty, and I love that phrase, being like a big inspiration to you. But like, talk to me about the lyricism of Echoes a little bit more, where, because we know Devenir has there's a whole story there, but I want to get into Echoes a little bit more so that the people in the next, 2.5 months before the new album comes out, they can sink their teeth into this and understand what you were thinking when you wrote those lyrics. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. Those lyrics were kind of different to the album or to Devenir because my son had already been there,
right.
And that was a time where I felt that I have changed and that everything had changed. And before, like 2 or 3 years ago, I wasn't very healthy. I was drinking a lot. I was smoking heavily, and that was all kind of. If it wouldn't have been for my son, I don't know where I would be now. It was not a very good time in like a health
mental
wise.
health. Yeah.
And that was all stuff that had changed so much because of my boy now, and he was like the remedy. I'm talking about an emerge. That was actually the first thing that came to my mind was emerge now from the fire, my remedy. And that was the first line I had for that song.
It's great. It's a great line.
Thank you.
And now that I know what it means, I love it even more. Okay. Because so he kind of saved you just by coming into existence.
So, yeah.
Tremendous. Yeah. Okay. Joel, I love you so much. Like I do. I really do. Like I love everything that you're saying, and I just love the person that you are. So you're a fantastic musician and a fantastic person. This is like the lottery for me. So I'm so lucky doing this show. I really am. I get so much of that. So I'm sorry. So keep going. So you had changed so much. You were kind of chronicling that evolution, and
so that was very different because it was a couple of months only between the album and the EP, but everything had changed, and that's why those lyrics came so easily to me, because I felt that everything was different now. And I tried to capture that in those songs, like lyric wise, and it was the first time I've done that like that, because I've as I said, never done that before, and I'm glad it is that you like it so much, that it
really
is something that, because the second thing with writing lyrics is English is not my first language. I think I'm very fluent, but
you're more fluent than half of the people who live in America. I think just in general. So you're very fluent, but that's a very good point, actually. That you were not writing in your mother tongue.
Is that grammatically correct what I'm doing? And in the end, it wasn't much about that. I didn't care, actually, but it was still I'm translating in my head, what I wanted to say, and there was no way I would sing in German, because in English it sounds cooler.
Okay, because that was something else I had wanted to ask you, was why you decide. I mean, I figured maybe it was just, I mean, and I please don't take this as an insult, but I understand that German it's not what I would call
it's not a beautiful language.
It's not a language. Well, I mean, I wasn't even going to make that level of a value judgment, because I love languages. I'm a language nerd. I speak a bunch of them, and I love just listening to languages. But German is not a delicate language. It's not, it's got more character. It's got more force than that. And I think so I thought it might be something like that, or I thought maybe, you wanted to have it break everywhere. And
Mm.
if it was only in German, that would keep the scope of people being able to enjoy it. I mean, what did we have? We've had German, singles that have done well in the States, I think, like,
Mm.
but I mean, like, I don't know. I'm like, was that even, I'm like thinking of Der Kommissar or whatever, but like, we've had stuff like that, but obviously if you're singing in English, you have a broader base, but that's interesting to me that you wanted it to, you must have wanted it to sound a certain way too. And it sounds like
Yeah.
singing in English was really the only way that you were gonna. So how'd you end
Yeah.
up with a French title for the album, since you're a German guy who sings in English? Like, I mean, I know the word is very meaningful, but
Yeah.
why not use the German word for becoming, or
That was just the little, very little French part in me.
okay.
My last name is de Blois, which
Oh
is
yeah, 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 that's right. That's
which
right.
means from Blois. Blois is a city south of Paris, and my ancestors came from there. And there was just a little thing that I
Little
didn't
homage to, okay.
I didn't want to call it becoming, because that reminded me too much of a Pantera song. And also part three is also already called
Right, right,
becoming. So
right, right.
I needed to do something different, and I thought this word was just beautiful. And
Yeah, it
so
is. It's
I
lovely. Yeah. And
thought
actually
French
it's
would be
it's a
nice.
French word that people can pronounce without speaking the language, because it is pretty phonetically similar
Yeah.
to how you pronounce it. It's
Yeah,
like,
there are harder words in French to
oh
pronounce.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's for sure. No, but okay. So I mean, so let me kind of let me give a little bit of a synopsis for myself, because I don't want to forget to ask you all the things that were running through my head as we were talking and as I was listening before we started talking and all of that. But so you had been in music for your most of your life. You had been working for a decade on just instrumental stuff that nobody saw or heard. You didn't publish anywhere. You found out you were going to be a dad. You started this project. You wrote a whole album. You had to step away from it while you figured out the vocal stuff and got your courage. You made this album. You're writing lyrics for the first time. You're singing for the first time. You're a father for the first time. You're a changed person. And so you come to the end of this album, okay? And I want to go through some of the songs on Echoes more specifically, because I really, I just want to, I want to love on them a little bit, and B, I want to ask about some specific choices that I thought were really cool. But when you finished Echoes, how did you feel about it? Did you feel like, okay, I'm singing on it? I wrote lyric. I know you had written lyrics prior, but this was the first thing you had really recorded vocals for.
Mhm.
And it was your second time writing lyrics for any kind of an album or EP. Did you walk away from Echoes feeling like this is what I wanted to achieve? Was it something that you had to stop yourself from going back and redoing? Like, how do you review your own album? How do you
Mhm.
feel about your own album? Because it is such a, even though it's not personal in the way that Devenir is going to be, it's still, given what you're describing, very personal.
Mhm.
It seems like all of the music that you have made and are making is very personal. So, given that, and given that you are shy, and given, self-described, and given that you're not someone who seems to fancy themselves particularly expressive or whatever, to put something like this out into the world, it's a very revealing thing to do. So, are you happy with how it came out? I mean, I know it seems maybe like a stupid question, because people will be like, "Well, yeah, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't release it." But some people do. Some people go, "Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I wanted it done. I wanted it out. I wanted to move on, and so I got it as close to where I could, and I moved on." And whatever. Like, what's your feeling? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you
I'm extremely happy with this one
good?
because I finished it.
Yeah, yeah,
I made one thing and I finished it. I released it and
yeah,
I sang, which was I never thought I would do that.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm extremely proud of those songs
You should
because
be.
they mean so much to me, and
Mm,
I listen to them. I've mixed and I didn't master them, but I mixed them and I've listened to them probably 1,000 times.
mm-hmm,
But I still like to listen to them because
mm-hmm.
I yeah I think they're good songs, and
Yeah, I do
I
too.
I'm super, super thankful that I am able to do this,
Yeah.
or able to be in that position to make music,
Yeah.
and to bring something like that out into the world. And
Yeah.
it was not so much important for me to release this on Spotify or whatever. This was just because it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing was for me to make CDs, and like physical CDs, the round
Right.
things. Somebody
Yeah.
knows them maybe. Um, and I made 25 copies, and number one is reserved for my son,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's hidden. And
love it.
this is the thing, I had this in my hand finally, this CD, and
Yeah.
this it made me so proud that I finished this, and be able to give this to my son someday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know how it will feel with the album, because that's like, from everything, it's like, yeah, 3 times the work and the
Yeah. Yeah. It's a more expansive
intensity.
project. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna be way bigger. So I will see how that goes. But I was, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very, very proud, but also relieved that I could finish this.
Well, I mean,
And
it's funny because well, it's not funny, but it's lovely actually. As you're first of all, I'm thrilled that you're thrilled with it. I would be irritated with you at the very least if you were not, because then I'd have to sit there and be like, "Here's why it's awesome, Joel." But I mean, it must feel wonderful on so many levels that, like, because when you said I actually finished it, people could take that as like, oh, haha, we're making an album is hard or whatever. But you told me a little bit ago that there was always something missing, right?
Mhm.
In something that you made for a decade. There were drums missing, there were vocals missing, there was guitar missing, and it seemed like there was you know, there were a ton of unfinished creations sitting out there that had kind of been orphaned, that you just didn't
Mhm.
finish. And again, the fact that just I'm when I get like this, it's because I'm so much is coming to me in a wave, and I'm emotional about it because it's so beautiful what you've done for your son and what your son has done for you, because he's changed you on an elemental level. You
Mhm.
are somebody who will put themselves out into the world despite the fact that you're shy. You are somebody who will communicate things that are deeply personal, even though you feel like it's difficult for you to express yourself. You've become someone who, finished things instead of, being afraid to, or, being too, caught up in drinking or smoking or whatever else might have been going on in your life to do that. He's made you who you seem to be meant to have been. Like, I don't know what the hell the
Yeah.
grammar was there, but I think you know what I mean.
I
But
got
like,
it. I got it. Yeah.
you're so lovely. And I love that your little boy, because I mean, I never talk about it on the show because it's a musical show, but like as a parent, you know, I would die for my kids. I mean, like, without hesitation. And
Mhm.
and I know you know that feeling. I can tell already. Like, that's what you do if you're a good parent. And you know, it means so much to me to see people who understand how revelatory children are,
Mhm.
and how they are not meant to fit into your life. Your life is meant to regrow around them, and then they grow
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
It's like you're changing the root structure of your tree, and then you're branching out together. And like, that's the power of that is exactly what I felt when I was listening to your music, and I couldn't articulate it until now, because I didn't think the songs were about your little boy, because I knew this
Mhm.
wasn't that album. And not that I didn't think that it factored in, because I was doing the math and going, okay, well, he had, if he found out he was going to be a dad in February, his kid had to have been born in the fall, and then the
Yeah.
album came out in March. And so, like, this was all pretty new. And I I think what I was reacting to partly emotionally when I was listening, and look, I mean, you guys have heard now lifelong, we're not, again, this is not some, Whitney Houston, like the Children Are Our Future ballad kind of album. It's not that album, but it's so, you don't have to even have kids or, whatever, care about kids if you don't have them, like to like this album. It's not that, but it's like, I think that's why it got me so much, because it is, the emotions that I got from what you were doing sonically didn't entirely make sense to me at the time. And it wasn't even about the lyrics so much, which are great, okay, but it was the music was what got me emotionally first, and then the lyrics. And again, because you made that, I think, brilliant choice to mix the vocals back and give the instrumentation the room to breathe and layer the way that you did. It's astounding to me that even, and I think it makes sense because of the way that you recorded the album. You had your little guy right next to you. It was, 10 a.m. night shift, whatever, you're up and you're just in that quiet and you're creating it. And I feel it. I feel what you, and I love that more even than the lyrics resonating with me. And I say this on almost every episode, that because I'm a singer, vocals and lyrics are the things that tend to grab me first, and they tell me how I'm going to feel about the song. I'll be honest with you, the first run through, I didn't even listen to the lyrics. I was just so focused on the instrumentation, which shocked me because it's literally the opposite of the way that I listen to music usually. Yeah. I'm going like, okay, what's he saying? And I didn't care. I didn't look up lyric videos. I don't think you have any anyway. Like I didn't care at first. I was just, but it was almost like classical music in that way, where like it just, the instrumentation, it was so infused with, and now I get it. So I'm like, because you solved a puzzle for me, because I reacted so emotionally to this album. You can ask Greg, I was listening to it. I usually sit down or, close my eyes or whatever. I was pacing around the house. I'm a very ADHD way of doing things because it was too emotional for me. I couldn't sit still on it. And it wasn't like, oh, this is it is kick ass. And it wasn't like, oh, this is really like, it is intense. It was, oh, this is moving me. And I don't understand why. And like, I knew that it was because of the instrumentation, but I didn't understand why. And I'm sorry, but the fact that I'm, like countries away from you, I don't know you from Adam. I didn't know anything about this backstory beyond, okay, this is something Joel put together when he knew he was going to be a dad, that it walloped me like that. Like, and it got me like that. I really want you to sit with that. Okay. Because you are capable of making music in a way and conveying your I'm like such a dork. I'm like trying not to cry, but like conveying your emotions. I don't care. People have seen me cry on this show so many times at this point. I don't get, but like in a way that is, it's almost primal. And I love that you gave that to me. I love that you made that album and that you gave me that experience. I thank you for that, because I it's not an album that I would have expected to react that way to, in the sense of it's not ballads and it's not, whatever. So I don't know. I don't have a question on that. I just wanted to say that to you because it's what's coming to me now. It's heartfelt, and you're watching me process your music and my emotional reaction to your music in real time. So I'm sorry, because I know I'm supposed to be asking you all these specific questions or whatever, but like, I just wanted to say that because it means a lot to me, because it's a new, I didn't think there were new tricks left in the bag for how I experience music by this stage in my life and how much music I've listened to. So I feel like it's beautiful. Your little boy is like a superhero because he changed you, and then he made you make something that has changed me. Like, that's beautiful. I love that so much. So, I mean, okay, I'm going to shut my mouth, and I'm sorry for babbling. But again, I could have shut that up, but I just decided to be honest and tell you how I was feeling, because
Thank
as
you
you're
for this.
talking, and all of that is sort of coming together for me. You guys watched my brain do its brain thing in real time. So I'm sorry, because this isn't a side of myself I necessarily like to broadcast on the show, because I don't want to make it about me. But it isn't about me. It's about
Mm.
how your music affected me. And that's all about you and your little boy who's like, I don't know, he's going to like cure cancer of the world or whatever. So like, I think that's great. So, but let me shut up. And again, I'm sorry for that very long monologue, but I just, yeah. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit, because I want to go through, a little bit about the songs on Echoes. And I want you to tell everybody a little bit more specifically what Divinir is about before we end up wrapping up. But, okay, so Emerge, you have already kind of gone over a little bit. But again, guys, this song, I mean, again, some people will see an 8-ish minute song and be like, oh, you know what, listen to it, because it's really, as we said, first of all, that line is just so great. I mean, to have that be the first line that you come up with for the song, and then to have the instrumentation match like it does. What was the, like, was that just the way that the song is, and all of those different dynamics, as I said, the tempo, the rhythms, the interplay of the instruments, like sort of almost the little bit of genre skipping, more metal bits, more prog bits, more rock and whatever bits that grew out of just sitting and jamming. How restructured was Emerge out of your late night sessions with Little Man?
The first part, I would say, from the song is like more like a build up.
Okay. Yeah.
To another part.
Yeah.
And but I had both parts some kind of interwoven into each other in actually different riffs that I cut out.
Oh, okay.
In the end, but it was, I wanted it to start not like punch in your face. It was like more like going slowly into it.
Yep.
That was the only idea I had for this song in the first place.
Oh, really? Was that
to,
was the intro where it kind of crescendos in, and
yeah,
okay.
That was the first idea, that I didn't just start playing. It just, you
Well, it
have
makes
to
sense. I mean, the
get
song
into
kind
it.
of emerges. It doesn't. The song isn't called, "Fuck you, I'm here." Like the song is called "Emerge," so like it does. So so that's very cool. Okay, and so you, and then I mean, was it mostly out of that jam though, when because as you said, you sort of you lead the song into one section, and and there is definitely a part, not exactly halfway, but where you could have cut it and made a second song out of the second half, but you didn't, which I thought was very interesting, and I liked it. I liked, like I said, it's that, to me, that very proggy thing of a song taking you through 5 different feelings and 5 different styles in one 8-minute thing. So I mean, why did you choose to keep it together? And I asked that question now having made sure it wasn't like, why didn't you just get, like, what made you realize it was the right decision to leave it as one song rather than cutting it into 2?
It was, for a long time, I thought I have to cut it because the parts are too different, but in the end I never could have imagined where to put that cut. There's some parts where you think, okay, there it could be, but it was like, no, those parts belong together.
Yeah.
And because it was from one take I made,
Okay.
from one 30-minute or 20-minute take I made, and I couldn't just, it was like splitting a usual song just in half somewhere for the chorus or something like this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think like Alive, there is a section pretty much halfway through where I think, even when everything gets really quiet, and then you kind of bring it back up, where that could have been a break. But again, I was glad that you didn't, because I love the okay, something just I'm sorry. You're just getting, poor Joel is getting like my brain on display. Like, a set of dots just connected for me, that I think part of why I'm glad that you didn't do that is because it is evocative of how what you're describing lyrically feels. to be in this place and then pulled to this place and then pushed to this place and to go through this thing and then this thing next. And it's all different, but it's all cohesive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna have this album on repeat because I'm listening to it in my head, and as you're talking, I'm going, oh, that's why he did that, yeah. Because again, it could have just been like, I thought it was cool and I did it, and, but like,
Yeah,
that
no,
makes
it's
a
the
ton
same
of sense.
with Alive.
Yeah.
Actually, it could have been two songs, but for me, those parts, they belong together. This is the build up for the next one,
Yeah.
and they have to be together.
Yeah.
And that was also a thing where I just was experimenting with some drony sounds on the guitar. The first half almost from Alive, and then I started with that riff, that comes after a couple of minutes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it was so I didn't even realize that it was so different after I heard it again. But that was, with this one, it was like, okay, this is one song. It is not gonna be two songs. Not with Emerge. I was thinking about splitting it, but with Alive,
Okay.
there was definitely just one song, and I didn't even think about breaking that one up or splitting it somewhere.
It's funny to me though, that because the one that is more clearly where you have the opportunity to split it, you were like, nope, not even thinking about it. And the one where it would have been much harder to my mind to parse it, you would have lost a lot with Alive if you had split it. Yeah. But it wouldn't have sounded unnatural, or it wouldn't have been difficult to figure out where that break was, because you do highlight it in the song. You do have that. It's almost like, okay, look, it almost feels like the song, if you're not looking at the Spotify or whatever, you might think the song is ending, but it's not. It's waiting, But with Emerge, if gun to my head, I couldn't tell you where you should break that song. Like I couldn't do it, because it all needs each other, and Alive does that too, but one of the things that I noted listening, and this is true of all the songs, I know we're talking about individual ones, but this is a blanket statement, is that one of the things that I find most difficult in, and again, I always feel like I sound like such an old lady when I say like, oh, the modern music or whatever, but like, when I listen to it, is that there's this relentless onslaught of just sound. It's like 3.5 minutes of just and like you have no. And what I love, and I think it is a little bit of a proggy thing. It's not something I generally tend to associate with metal, but you are not only mixing up, playing with is a better phrase, I think, than mixing up, because that might sound more calamitous, but like, you're playing with tempos, as I said, you're playing with dynamics, as I said, you're playing with rhythms, as I said. And what's cool about that is that you remember the power of silence and spaces in music. Not every single note has to be played. You don't have to be listening to somebody, Eddie, Van Halening himself, off a cliff all the time, and what I love about it is that because you let those spaces exist, and I don't even mean that you stop playing. You don't. You have tiny moments where going into a breakdown or going into a solo or whatever, where there's a little breath. But what I found interesting was that and more than interesting, what I found fucking awesome was that you create space, even within sound, with those dynamic shifts, that things will be, in lifelong, like, we heard, you start out with that kind of ramp up into, the guitar and the drums, those, those chords at the beginning, kind of like, coming up. And then it's very intense, but because you will change tempo, because you'll change the dynamics, and things will be very da, 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 and then like that. It will give the ear the illusion of space. And it made me kind of breathless in listening to it, because it I didn't know where you were going to take me next. I didn't know. And I liked that. It wasn't like, what the fuck is going on now? It was like, okay, where are we going now? Show me. Like, I'm in your hands. I trust you. I heard Emerge. I was already good. You assured me for 8 minutes that you knew what you were doing here. And so I'm good. I trust you. But like, I love that there were moments where I was like, oh, the song is ending. And then it was like, oh, no, it's not. Okay, good. And then we're here. Oh, well, all right. So this is going to be more of his prog metal. Oh no, wait, we're doing alt rock. Okay, now we're back. But it's artful. It's not just, okay, let's play, like 24 bars of like a punk song and then go into like, an ABBA thing for like, 2 minutes or whatever. Like it all, as you said, it all has to be there. So, I mean, that's tremendous to me, that even in just jamming like that, you're jamming and you're freestyling, so to speak, is so divergent. It's so varied, and I mean, does that come from, do you think that's more about like influences of music where you're like, oh, here I feel like, or is that literally just you sitting down? And I'm thinking of Jamsteak here a little bit, with their jams, where their albums are, they sit down, they play the jams, they record them, they put them out, they're done. That's why they have so many albums, because they're doing what you're doing. It's a different kind of music, different feel, different motivation behind it. Also fucking awesome. But like, that it's like, okay, we know there are going to be mistakes in here. We know it's not going to be exactly right. We know it's not going to sound as pretty as it could if we went in and studio, produced it within an inch of its life. But that's not what it's supposed to be. That's not what Jamsteak does. That's not what Steam Slicer does. So like, is this more about inspiration of like trying to fit in different genres, or is this is what happens when you sit down and you just let whatever you're going to play happen? Is that really because I get the sense it's the latter. But
yeah,
I mean,
it's not. I was trying to not be influenced by any musical stuff,
Very
because,
cool. Okay.
In the past, and the music I did in the past was, the stuff is almost like copies from something else.
Gotcha. Okay.
I didn't want that. And I know there is a part in Emerge in the beginning where everyone says that sounds like Tool. I can explain that if you want to, but
I think I know what you mean, but if you can briefly, for the Tool fans watching, I think they would probably geek out on that a little bit, as Tool fans tend to on Tool. So
yeah, it's this first riff that comes in Emerge that is almost sounds like a copy of the song Jambi by Tool.
Okay, that one I don't know.
Yeah, it's really crazy because I didn't either. I didn't know that song, and I was going for Beatles and Come Together in the beginning.
Oh yes. Okay. Yes. I hear it. Okay.
I took this rhythm and I played it on the guitar. That's what I do usually, because I'm a drummer. I have rhythms in my head, and then I somehow try to put it on the guitar and make a melody out of it. And this one was, I put a little more notes in it and played it faster. And then it was like, okay, cool. Now you don't even know that that I stole this from the Beatles. So that's pretty cool. And then I made these songs and I
borrowed it, adapted it. You didn't steal anything. Please, Beatles, don't come after him, Paul. Like, he's okay.
I think I've changed it enough.
Yeah. I think you're good. I think you're good.
And then I heard, it sounds like Tool. And I'm a big Tool fan, but I'm not the biggest Tool fan of all time, and I don't know every single song from them.
Okay.
But it was like, okay, people are saying Tool a lot. Why is that? Because I didn't hear a lot of Tool in that time, and it couldn't have been some kind of influence. And then a guy, a good friend of mine said, nice Jambi vibes in that song. And I was like, what is Jambi? What is that?
Yeah.
Is that a band? I don't know. And I looked for
and all the Tool fans started coming after you with pitchforks. How could you not? Yeah.
And then I listened to the song and I thought, fuck, it sounds exactly the same. What am I doing now?
Okay.
And,
you wrote a Tool song by accident. You didn't mean to. I believe you. I totally believe, because you just said about the Beatles, if it had been intentional, you would admit to it. So Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah,
it really was. It was crazy when I heard that the songs were already mastered and stuff. You know, I couldn't
yeah,
change
I'm
that,
not
and
gonna
I
go back.
didn't
No.
want to change it anyway.
Okay, but so then you were
Yeah,
saying that you, with the exception of that, which was not even an inspiration, it was totally unintentional.
yeah,
You really were trying not to sound like anything
like
else.
anything. Yeah, it was really like just being there with myself and
Mm-hmm.
just playing. And as I said, I'm having rhythms in my head
Mm.
everywhere. I'm tapping along every time I
Yeah.
can, and it's hard for my girlfriend actually because she's freaking out because I'm drumming on everything.
I'm married
Um,
to a drummer. I feel her pain. She and I can get on a call, and I can just be
yeah,
like, yes, but we're both married to the best dads ever, so it's worth it with the drumming.
yeah,
It's fine.
nice.
We'll forgive it. But I mean, but so, and now just because I didn't ask you this yet, but all of the instruments on the album, that's all you? Is any of that?
Yeah.
None of that is sampled. None of that is
No, the
programmed. None
drums
of
are
the,
programmed because I can't afford to go to a studio and
right, because you're in an
microphone.
apartment, right?
Yeah,
But like, yeah, but right, the drums, yes, but like the guitar, the bass,
guitar
that's
and
all
bass
you.
is all
Okay.
me, and there's some little samples that I took from the internet to yeah just to bring a little something in there, like the
Just
beginning
fill things
of
in. Yeah.
Intense Infinity. There's some crackling going on. I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of cool, and stuff like this.
It's more
I'm not.
atmospheric bits though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay. Yeah.
that's stuff I use, but I don't use like synthesizer or
Mm-hmm.
yeah like
Mm-hmm.
keyboard stuff.
Okay.
I haven't found the right sounds that would fit my music. So I'm keeping it like yeah, rock and roll, just
Okay.
bass guitar and drums.
Yeah.
And but I
No, and
layer
you
a
don't,
lot.
and yeah. Well,
So
I was going to say you don't need more than that because it
mm,
sounds really rich. And I mean, one of the things that you do on, I think, Emerge and also maybe Intense Infinity, and maybe a little bit on Alive, but I'm not sure, is you do a cool thing where you have the bass and the guitar in tandem following each other. And the low end, if you really listen, is so rumbly and it's so
mm,
rich and it's so full. And then you've got these bright guitars or the bright guitar. And then in some cases, guitars like the Alive, especially, you get about the midway point and you sneak in that little guitar counterpoint underneath the main riff in the back, and it's
mm,
subtle, but it definitely adds that dimension to it. And I love that you are um playing with that, that it makes sense to me that even on guitar and bass, you're playing them like a drummer would.
mm,
It is all very rhythmic. I mean, you have
yeah,
the arpeggiation like on Emerge with the guitar, and you have everything is very drum, and it makes sense to me, as I said, you being a drummer, that the album is very drum forward, and again, not in the mix, just in the engine of the song, that sometimes it's the guitar, sometimes it's the bass, sometimes it's the
mm.
vocals. It's very much for me the drums in this, and they're um they really it I just I want to stop talking to you so I can go listen to it again. But no, but I mean no, but so I think the only song that we haven't talked about yet, and I don't want to leave it out, is Singularity. So that one's kind of a different feel than the
Mhm.
others to me. Still fits and everything, but so talk to me about that one a little bit.
This is one where I not so much talk about, or I talk more about my fear of like dying and the infinite, when you die and then there's nothing forever.
Right.
That kind of thought is like that haunts me forever, like since I'm a child.
Mm-hmm.
And this this song just describes because I was when I'm trying to fall asleep and I can't, and then I get to this point where I think about that stuff and then I can't sleep at all.
Right there with you.
But there was just a time where I thought about just flying around, and then there was this black hole thing where they discovered, or they made pictures of the black hole and all that. And I was fascinated by black hole
Mm.
like universe thing, and this describes the way you would feel when you go into a black hole. Like actually scientifically, as much as you can, describes this, and this singularity is for me like it's a very powerful word for me, and it was kind of like it's hard to describe, where I would enter a black hole, and then on the other side there would be something that is not so scary, you know, in the end, that there is not something like an infinite time thing that
Abyss. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that was kind of the inspiration behind that song that I wanted to talk about, where I'm just trying to come or find a way to deal with my fears and my anxiety when I think about that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course also with connected to my son and everything, that there's a time where I have to go and he is still there and he has to do, and there's gonna be lots of those things in the album actually, of those thoughts. Yeah, it's from the chorus, it's my favorite actually. I'm very proud of that chorus because I like to sing it, and I think it somehow went very great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm actually kind of proud of how I came up with that stuff. It's crazy. It's very hard to describe how I felt.
No, but I think, you know, that you've gotten across the look. I mean, nobody's in anyone else's head, so you can't ever fully understand. But like, you know, that idea, and what I think is lovely about that is that you've taken a fear of the unknown and you've turned, because, you know, when we think of things that we don't know, or we, you know, think about things we can't understand, or things that are, you know, a mystery to us or whatever, you know, it's easy to be afraid of that, you know, but you found a way to find hope that maybe the thing that we don't know yet is a good thing, you know. And that's, I know, speaking personally, that's as opposed to speaking impersonally, but just, you know, for me, that's not something I usually go to. I am absolutely, when it comes to like certain things, a worst case scenario person, which is weird to people when they hear it, because I'm always so optimistic for everyone but like myself, which is a weird twist. But so I love that you did that. I love that you were like, okay, but here's a way that maybe it could be okay. So I love that. And I think what you said there about, you know, your son and you know, the idea that there, you know, we have this, you know, Venn diagram of lives with our parents and with our children and whatever. I think that's a good place for us to talk a little bit about. And I'm my thought was like, I don't want to talk to him too much about Devon Year, because I want to have him come back after it's out at some point. But I'm also thinking about like the hundreds of people that we have waiting, and you know. But so tell everybody a little bit about you know, we've alluded to it, but you know, the understanding it's coming from, you know, finding out you're going to be a dad and all of that, but the specific, you know, because you just put out or not just, but I don't remember where I saw on your social media the track list. And again, it's going to be a shorter, it's not too many songs, right? But they're longer. So you have like, you know, part 1, which comes out November 1st. I mean, I'm sorry, September 1st.
September 1st, yeah.
And then you've got, and then you've got, there's the transition, right?
No, there's, it is 3 parts.
Yeah, there's retro, like there's existence, and then there's becoming, right?
That's like past, present, and future.
Right.
That is like the main thing, and
okay,
all these 3 parts have 3 songs, and they are connected by transmission songs.
Gotcha.
So in the end, and there's an outro, which makes it to 12 songs in the end.
Right. Okay.
So, but they feel
so the transition pieces are multiple songs then, and then the sections like the past, present, and future are multiple songs. So how many songs are there total on the album?
It's 12 songs on the album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's the first part is 3 songs, then there's a transmission song, then the second part another 3 songs, another transmission, then third part 3 songs,
Okay.
and then an outro. So
Okay. All right.
that's
That's a
all it
lot to
is.
chew on.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I decided to put out singles to
Smart.
otherwise you wouldn't get it probably. It's a
Yeah.
lot of information you need to fully grasp what this album is about,
Hmm.
and that's why I also chose to put out 3 singles, and which yeah, or then I can promote them and tell the story again on what this all means, so you
Yeah.
can fully understand the album in the end.
Right.
And
Right. Because
yeah,
it's difficult to release something that is conceptual like that separately, but you
yeah,
also don't want people to be waiting indefinitely
yeah,
for something new to come out. Although, to be fair, 8 months or
yeah.
so
It's
is
not.
not that long.
Yeah, it's
But I mean,
okay.
it's been a long time coming for you. It'll be almost 2 years from when
Yeah,
you started it to when it comes out. So I mean that's understandable. So I mean, so we will be hearing. I mean, musically, obviously, lyrically, we've talked about it a lot, but musically, do you feel like the jams that you recorded and the things that you kept, restructured, changed, whatever, is it similar musically to Echoes? Is it a totally different thing? Is it a little bit of each?
it is a little more progressive, I would say.
Okay.
There's a little more rhythmic stuff going on there,
Okay.
but I try to have in the songs like a chorus line that brings you back. Sometimes it maybe gets a little confusing or a little bit too much here and there.
Okay.
But there's always like a chorus that brings you back, and
Okay.
yeah,
So that's
I'm
different because I wouldn't
it's
say that
different.
you
Yeah.
have any what I would call choruses or I mean the
Mm.
songs on Echoes don't really have a song structure. I mean they are
Not too
structured, but
much. Yeah.
it's not like verse
Yeah.
chorus bridge chorus out. So that'll be okay, that's very cool. That's very cool. So
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing then for you. And then so it's more proggy, it's more traditionally structured.
Yeah,
um
that, in some ways,
Okay.
I try to make myself free from these structure things,
Yeah.
just because that is taking away freedom
Yeah.
in writing songs for me.
Yeah. And you
And
didn't need it anyway. Like Echoes
yeah,
didn't suffer for it at all. So
yeah,
if anything, I think it benefited from it because you could go somewhere completely new rather than having to come back to what we had already
mm,
heard. So
yeah,
and that makes it metal-ish for me because again unless it's like a 1999 by AOD or
yeah,
whatever there's the AOD reference but like most I don't think most metal stuff that I've listened to for this show has what I would consider to be a chorus or a verse or whatever.
mm,
It's kind of its own non-format. So it'll be interesting for me. I'm curious to hear how you involve that but don't become slavish to that because
yeah,
at this point I'm just I would venture to guess that whatever you decide to do with it is going to just be terrific. So I'm that's cool to know that it's going to be different in that way.
mm.
And okay, so and then so are the you know what I was going to ask the question but I think I want to wait until the album comes out together. I was going to say like, does the tenor of the songs because again when you're talking about past present and future retro and existence and then becoming and it's interesting to me that you choose becoming as the word for kind of the beginning of the end. I
Mm,
would think becoming might be where you begin you know
mhm.
um but so are the is there like a musical progression in terms of do things get are they maybe more serious toward the end or calm toward the end or like is are you using what's a good way to ask my question, are you using the sort of tropes, I'm guessing you're not now that I'm saying it out loud because it's you, but like of what people might expect music about the beginning and the middle and the end to be? Or is it
Yeah.
just, is there, would you say that you feel like the album is more progressive in that way, or is it really, it's all just each of those three sets of three songs with the transitions in the middle are their own thing entirely, and it's not that pat?
Yeah, you can hear differences in the sound
Okay.
of those parts, but I'm using the same tuning and the guitars and everything. It's not
Okay.
about like this kind of sound, but it gets darker
Mm,
and a little more. Well, in the beginning it's more progressive, I would say, and in the end it gets more atmospheric. I
okay.
would call it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot about understanding life and or
Mm,
trying to understand life and
mm,
realizing stuff. And it's funny because I you know, you have this beginning and then the middle part and then the end, and it's funny how you would point yourself on that you know, where you are in life. And I
okay.
keep jumping back and forth, and this makes it super interesting, I think, for anyone who hears this,
Yeah.
where you are right now, if you're like here or there, or if you're
Mm,
in the beginning or if you're in the end. And this, I think it takes a couple of spins to fully understand
mm,
the whole
mhm,
thing. And
mhm.
I'm super excited about this because some of that vocal recordings are not done yet.
I see you're still working on them, yeah.
So yeah, and it changes. You know, it's as you said, almost 2 years now, and
Mm,
it has changed. I have changed in the progress of making this album, and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
keep putting myself on different positions in that album. So this is
That's cool.
it's really an interesting way of writing music. It's very crazy sometimes.
But I love that though, because and what you're describing reminds me a little bit of Bone Locker's album The Road, this idea of, life
I
being,
love that
a
album.
metaphorical road. Yeah, and I do too. And but it's so cool to hear how two different artists approach a similar idea from
Mhm.
very different angles, I'm yeah, I'm really excited for this album. Okay, so we only have, by the time this airs, the single rather, Retro, will already be out. And people will have been loving it, and I'll have been listening to it a bunch when I was supposed to be doing laundry or something else, but or maybe while. But so you are obviously, I'm assuming, releasing these in order. Like you said, you were going to do
Yeah,
three at a time. You're not doing one from each section. You're doing one section and then the middle and then the end
yeah,
section. Okay. All
exactly.
right. That makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. So,
yeah,
yeah, because it's interesting though. It almost feels like you could have done it either way and it would work. I feel like you could kind of do
yeah.
anything and it would work, frankly, at this point. But all right, Joel,
Yeah,
I
let's see
could,
how it works.
it'll work. I have complete confidence in you. But I was gonna say I could talk to you for hours, but I already have. But I could talk to you for hours more. But I know it's getting late there. It's probably is late there. Okay. I'm gonna take you to, as you know, a little segment we like to call In the Vox Seat. So I ask the same 5 questions of everyone, and they've become quite the meme among the band together group and everything else. But I'm interested to get yours to this very first question here, which is that if you have to describe the music of Steam Slicer, what would you say in 5 words or less?
Atmospheric, energy-driven life.
Ooh, okay. I like
It's not a
that.
sentence, actually, but
No, it doesn't have to be. It's just words, so that's fine.
I
And you
was
even
thinking a lot about it, and it's very hard. And I thought I would just go with what comes to my mind now.
good. I always like that because, when I did the first few episodes before it aired and people realized that this was going to be, the same set of questions every show, I was hoping people wouldn't cheat and prepare, and I think a couple people say they didn't, but they did. But I like that. I like that you're being extemporaneous about it, because I think that's the most honest. So I appreciate that. So, okay, what is your favorite thing about being a musician?
Expressing myself,
Mm-hmm.
like I couldn't do with words or with anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder though. Have you gotten any more comfort in being expressive verbally since your little boy came along? I bet you have.
Yeah.
Even just a little tiny bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, there you go. Yeah. So by the time he's 5, he's going to have you chattering away. He's going to be like, Daddy, we need
shut up, man.
Well, by the time he's a teenager, even if you barely say anything, he's going to tell you to shut up. I think they're legally required to do that. But so, okay. So self-expression, and that's not an uncommon answer to this question, but I think especially in the context of what you've described about yourself and your overhaul of yourself in the last 18 months or so, I think that has particular resonance, expressing yourself through music. So I really like that. Okay. But so then if you have one, which you might not, your least favorite thing about being a musician?
Not having time, not having enough time.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Says the man who wrote and started recording and mixing 2 albums in the 18 months since he found out he was going to be a dad, had a kid. Whenever you're like,
well, you got to make it work somehow.
Imagine what you would do if you had more free time. I can't even picture.
That would be super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common one though.
That much time, but it's not possible.
No. But you have your boy, so that's even better than free time.
That ever happened to me. Yeah.
I totally get it, and I want to meet this magical child someday. but okay. I have no sense of what you're going to say to this, because we really didn't talk about it much at all, except for the Tool conversation. But if you had to choose just one album to listen to for the rest of your life, just one, which one would you choose and why?
Yeah, I think I already said it. It would be Vulgar Display of Power.
Okay. Okay. You're going to go back to the thing that began it all.
Yeah. This changed everything music-wise. The drumming and the guitar play of the Abbott brothers is just phenomenal. And ever since I haven't heard something that got me so like this record. It's or this band. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. I have a lot of influences and bands that I really, really like, but this band, I'm listening to them for more than 20 years now. Yeah. And they don't get boring for me. And
that's when crazy, you find that's wonderful. Yeah. When you can listen to the same album for decades or the same band for decades and it's still fresh for you. I have bands like that too. And I'm like, because you can get tired of things that you love. Absolutely. And then maybe not listen to them for a very long time and then come back. But yeah. Okay. No, that's a good one. I should have actually remembered that. That makes a lot of sense to me. But all right, Joel.
Yeah, sorry, there's nothing new there, but
no. But it's a very good really, what else could it be given what it set off for you, right? I mean, the only other thing that seems to have changed your life that much is your son, and he's not a record. So, well, he kind of is actually when Divineer comes out, but you know what I mean. So. Okay, this is it, Joel. This is the big one. This is the $1 million question. Okay, and we got Freaky Things and Dom from Jamsteak sitting there in the chat right now, going, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, Joel." But here we go. All right, your toilet paper roll. Does the toilet paper come from over the top, or do you pull it out from underneath, and why?
Over the top. Over the top.
Okay. Sorry, Dom. You can breathe.
Yeah, it is over the top. I can't imagine why you would do it the other way around. It's wrong. I'm so sorry.
There's something about your saying that with the German accent that makes it sound so much more damning and official. You sound very authoritative on that one. No, there's no. You can't.
Yeah, that's that way. No, it always has been, and I'm not freaking out if someone does that, but
Okay.
I have to change it then. If I'm at a restaurant and they put it there like this, I have
even
to
at the
change it.
restaurant, you'll never see that roll of toilet paper again, but you have to put it.
Yeah, but I have the image in my head then.
Wow, that's a level of commitment I don't think we've heard yet on this show. Most people are like, well, you know, it has to be that way in my house. But no, you're literally changing the world one toilet paper roll at a time. Look at you.
It's a lot of OCD going on there, I think.
Oh, I'm right there. I can relate. Yes, I can relate to that too. Absolutely. Oh, Joel, it has been so much fun for me to talk to you tonight. I really, if I haven't mentioned it already, you may have figured out, really love your music, really love the album.
Thank you
Cannot wait for Devenir to come out. And, you know, guys, again, you know, September 1st, it came out already. By the time this airs, you know, part 1 retro. Go listen. You know, Joel is woefully underrepresented on Spotify. So as a personal favor to me, please go stream him, follow him, do all the good things. You know, you will maybe doing it as a favor to me initially, but you will thank me for it once you start listening, because this album is, I'm going to go ahead and bring it all full circle here and say that I would call Echoes of Infinity a singularity of its own.
Bam.
So, no, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for being on this show. It has been a pleasure to go through your music with you. All right, guys, that's it. That's another Vox and Guest. We will see you next time. Bye.